So let's just assume we're ballparking calling 10 mil for 106 shows. That's $1 billion. So if it's 10 mil a show, stadium gets about 30%. So that's 3 mil out the door. Staging, so you're setting up the stage about 20%. That's another 2 mil. And then promoter gets about 10% of the gross. So that gives Taylor 40% in her pocket, roughly, from the
that
10.
Sounds about right, yeah.
So
and that's not including merch and stuff. Merch is on top of that,
that's not including merch.
Merch is probably pure profit.
Merch is very high margin, obviously. So it sounds like each show is about, you guys will laugh at this. So she's getting $25 from each person times 50. That's another mil a show. So now we're at literally 5 mil a show. And that's how it gets to the other headline number. What's 5 mil times 106 shows? That's 500 plus mil to her.
Profit.
So Taylor Swift will make $500 million on this tour.
Incredible.
Pre-tax.
Welcome to another episode of No Investment Advice. We got the NI boys here today. Jack Butcher, Trung Phan, Bilal Zaidi. We're back, boys. We're all back at home base. You see me with the plant in the background. Feels good to be back in America just in time for 4th of July weekend. How you boys doing, mate? What's going on?
Did you plan your trips so that you be back for the 4th?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it kind of just worked out. But no, I mean, I'm not even doing that much for it. But definitely thought, that'll be a good introduction back into the American way of life. You know, just barbecue and celebrating freedom sort of life. So cool. That's pretty much.
One of the three of us here is doing some real 4th of July stuff. I believe Jack Butcher.
Least.
Is it preheating right now? What temperature are you trying to get? What meats will you be putting on the grill right after this call?
I just got back from Costco yesterday, boys. A boot full, a trunk full, I should say, of red meat.
A trunk full.
All right, yo. Yeah, can you give us the itinerary of what's
the barbecue rundown?
Yeah.
Well, I was actually a little conservative, but you know they've got the 1.5-inch thick New York strip ribeye,
like a 30 pack,
sirloin,
or like the 12 pack.
The big boy packs. Yeah. Some shrimp. You know, a little bit of everything.
Shrimp on the barbie.
Man, shrimp.
There we go.
Shrimp is so easy to cook. I love it, man. You just throw it on and it turns orange.
It's underrated.
Everything else, for a barbecue, you might have salmonella. You might freaking undercook
shrimp.
it.
Fast protein, boys. Shrimp.
Yeah.
Clean. Well, there's no better way to start this off than a meme of the week to talk about our favorite American idol of the moment, who we're talking about today, Taylor Swift. She's about to hit $1 billion on her tour. So, Jack, do you want to pull up the meme of the week for us, mate?
All right.
Here we go. Trung, this is a Trung special. Trung, do you want to explain to us what's going on in this picture here for the people listening?
I'll actually give credit to my wife here. And so she sends me. So I tell her,
it's so good.
She's on Instagram. I don't use Instagram. So she always sees all their meme accounts. Half the stuff on Instagram is stolen from Twitter anyways, but the other half is kind of evergreen. And then she just sends me 3 or 4 things a day. I'm sending me content. So she sent me this yesterday morning.
So good.
I'm like, this is gold. So this was from an account called Stereo Gum on Facebook, but I'm sure they ganked it from somewhere else.
I saw it on Archbishop of Banterbury as well,
you've
one of my
seen
favorite.
It, right? Okay, so it's already going around. So for the listeners, what this is it's a TV show and a Chiron. The banner at the bottom says Taylor Swift fan. Woman hides identity because she called in sick to work, and there's literally a woman being interviewed with a pink towel on and sunglasses. I don't even know if this is real, but I believe it to be real because this, as we're about to talk about, this Taylor Swift Eras tour is ridiculous. It's the most it thing I can remember in many, many years.
Have either of you guys / your wives gone to the tour yet?
No.
Our neighbors went. Our neighbors went.
Neighbors went?
Mm-hmm.
Did they say it was amazing?
What was the feedback?
Yeah, so it was great. I think they actually were supposed to go to the one here, and the weather was awful. On one of the national nights, some insane storm came through, and I think a lot of people just waited there until 11 o'clock. She just played the whole set, but just 3 or 4 hours later, they went to Minneapolis, I think, to go and see it a couple of week ago or last week, something. Yeah. So,
well, you're kind of Bilal, why don't you tell the listeners what we'll talk about other than the Taylor Swift tour? But that's
what we got. So we're going to be talking about Taylor Swift because it's 4th of July special. Obviously, you got to talk about that. We're going to touch on affirmative action, and then we're going to do our travel discussion segment that we were trying to get to last episode, but we ran out of time, so we saved that for this week. So that should be the 3 things today. And I will say my missus is going to California especially to watch this tour. So she's going with her best friend who's pregnant. She's going to be like 7-8 months pregnant, I think, by that point. And
I mean,
that's
this is
gonna
speaking
be like the
to
send-off.
what is happening. Why
Yeah.
this is such a big deal, right?
no, she's literally
Well-
flying across the country to watch this. It's pretty crazy.
Wait, Jack, have you ever seen Taylor Swift live?
Nope.
Okay. All right. So, Bilal, why don't you tee us up with that? So, the meat of this segment is a Wall Street Journal article from Neil Shah last week. Neil Shah, I believe, is a music and entertainment reporter.
Yeah.
He wrote that this tour, Taylor Swift Eras Tour, which started in March, just 3 months ago, is on pace to do over $1 billion gross, which will be the first tour ever to do that. So we'll talk in
Yeah.
general about more. But Bilal, what else did you see from that article
Yeah, I
that
mean-
kind of piqued your interest?
Yeah, just from what I've read, and I know you're writing about this for you. Is it coming out this week in your newsletter, or is it like
on
next
Saturday.
week?
I got some
On Sat
Go
Post.
ahead.
All right, cool, perfect. So yeah, I mean the interesting thing is she's not really releasing her numbers. It sounds like so normally every night they'll be releasing this. I forgot the third party that reports all of this, but that's why when we've heard about Ed Sheeran, Elton John, like these massive acts, they've been like the two really big ones before, from what I understand, representing the UK. That's nice to see. But they basically they will clear like the gross number for the night and they'll report it, and then at the end of the year you get these roundups of who made the most money. But in this case it sounds like she's not reporting that. She's going to do that right at the end or something like that, which I thought was quite interesting.
she doesn't have to, right? The
Yeah.
main purpose a lot of people report numbers for tours is it drums up hype. Like,
Yeah.
oh, this tour
It's like
did X
another-
this week.
It's like another news
exactly.
story, right? Exactly. It's like when New York Times bestseller list for your book. Like once you hit that, even more people get interest, and there's like a cycle there.
100%.
But yeah, I think, and the thing is, we've talked about her before. Obviously, she's like a superstar already. But remember, we had the Spotify discussion thing with her, where she was pulling out of deals that she had
pulled her
from years ago.
catalog. She said
Exactly.
the streaming was way too low. Yeah, we'll talk about it. She's got major flex. But Bilal, I wanted to mention one thing. You're saying shout out to the British cats because Ed Sheeran and Elton John, which have had massive tours. So actually, let me list you guys the current highest grossing tours ever. 5 of the top 6 are British, which is
5 of the top
incredible.
6. That's wild.
5 of the top 6. So and then
Is
I'm gonna
Craig
list them.
David in the list? Let's hear.
No,
He's
let me
not.
say this. 7 Days is such a great song. So I'm
Incredible.
gonna list them, and I'm curious as to how many of these tours you guys have been to. I'm sure Jack's been to a lot of them. So number 1 right now, this is inflation adjusted, is U2, the U2 360 tour. That's 2009, 2011. That was 960 million. Ed Sheeran, the Division Sign tour. I don't know what that is. That's
Mhm.
2017, 2019. That's 888 million. He's a beast.
That's
Elton
incredible, man.
John,
Yeah.
Farewell Yellow Brick Road is 2018 to 2023. So that is 887. Rolling Stones, A Bigger Bang, is 2005 to 2007, is 780 million. Guns N' Roses, the only American and non-British act in the top 5 right now, is not in this lifetime, 2016 to 2019, 700 mil. And then Coldplay, Head Full of Dreams,
Wow.
2016, 2017, 624. So apparently their tour right now, they might also break $1 billion on their current tour. But have you guys been to any of those tours?
Nope.
I don't think I have. I've seen Ed Sheeran live, but not on his official tour.
No, that-
I saw him like in Central Park or something.
Jack,
And,
you didn't go to the
he's-
Head Full of Dreams, Coldplay? I feel like that's a Jack joint right there.
Oh,
Not
sir.
a Coldplay fan.
That's like I haven't actually. Most of that stuff I would have been caught at festivals.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Back in
You'd-
back in my live music days, I was trying to get as much bang for my buck as possible, mate.
Yeah. Did you
Sharing
go
a
to Glastonbury,
5-seater.
Jack?
We used
How
to
many
do
acts can we get in here?
a Reading Festival. I
Oh
used to
my
do
God.
every year, and Global Gathering
Wow.
class. It's a good time.
Did you go to Glastonbury?
Never been to Glastonbury.
Because
no. My
Elton
mum has
John just
been like
headlined
10
that. Did you
times.
see that?
Really?
Oh yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And then so Trunk, can I ask a quick question? Because
Yeah.
for people listening, like I know if I was listening to this, I would have got lost on the numbers a little bit because
Yeah.
it's quite hard to
700 to 900 million is the ballpark
The
of those top
ballpark.
6. Yeah.
But the key question here is though, for comparison, some of these are like longer than others, right?
Yes.
That was kind of a weird metric. I thought it would be better to look at per year because I mean, obviously it's like one big tour and they're making the most of that one big tour. But like it looks like her one is way shorter so far, and she's already hitting this amount.
That's a great point you're bringing up. It's not apples to apples, obviously, because some like Elton John's a 6-year tour, right? And also per year's tough because it's like you could do 200 shows in 1 year if you wanted.
Yeah.
But so let's talk specifically to her and let's standardize it a bit. The way I'd standardize it is this: is what is the gross per show, and she's about 10 million right now. So call it 50,000 per show because you're doing large stadiums, and call it 200 average ticket. So like the retail price, not the markup on secondary, right? So 200 times 50,000 is 10 million a show. That's top line. We'll break down what her walkaway is, but you brought up a great point. So her 10 million a show is, compared to the list I gave you, by far the top. The only other one that's close is U2, which was about 7 million a show. So they're commanding higher ticket prices and filling a lot of stadium seats. Every other show is between 3 to 5 million gross per show. So that's probably a good standard metric, right? And to your point about the number of shows, so she started this tour in March. You guys remember we talked about it then, right? The Ticketmaster stuff.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Yeah, like she
the
broke
prices went up crazy.
Yeah, she broke it. Like people have been, part of the reason why this tour is so big is she hasn't toured in, I think, 5 years. COVID obviously was a big reason for that. And in the period from her last tour, which by the way, I believe her last tour was Reputation, it was the highest grossing US tour ever. So she's already, but I think that's 300 million about. And her previous tour before that did about 250. So she's been in the 200 to 300 range. So like, if you were to ask at the beginning of the year, who's going to break a bill? Like she's in the conversation, right?
Yeah.
But it still was the perfect storm because, well, I'll ask Jack about this. Jack, you went to so many, obviously you had kids between then, but like, you used to go to so many live acts. Then COVID happens, everything dies down. There's pent up demand, right?
Yeah. No, it feels like even just, I don't know, I don't even think it might have converted new people to it even, not just people who didn't get to go. It was like, oh, I've been stuck inside for 2 years. Like, it feels like the desire to spend on experiences in public has increased as a function of people being stuck inside, regardless of what it is, eating out, going to concerts, doing anything outside. Yeah, traveling, just like every single one of those things feels like it's under strain with the amount of demand that is that exists for it now.
That's such a great point because, sorry, Bilal, before you throw the question, I wanted to jump on Jack's point because it is a great point. Her fandom pre-COVID was largely female and in her teens, like call it the 15 to 30 range. But exactly like you said, there's like the appetite is now no longer one demographic. It's everybody just wants to do cool shit. What is the cool shit in 2023 right now? It's just blah. Melina and her friend are flying cross country to watch Taylor.
Yeah.
That's insane.
My neighbors, Celia, was like, please get me the merch from the
that's
show.
The other part.
Yeah.
The merch is like flying off the shelves too, like that. I mean, we'll get into that because it was
We're
covered in the article, but crazy amounts as well.
We'll get into it. I was just going to...
No, go for it. You're the merch king.
I was going to say, there's
a
difference between the merch you can buy on the internet and the merch you can get at the show, right? It's very subtly different, but the flex of the tour dates, I think, on the back is the show exclusive version of the merch. The other thing I was told about when our neighbors went is the hotel they stayed in must have had a partnership with the tour in some capacity because they reskinned the whole thing. All the pictures on the walls were changed out for, her tour photos or like lyric sheets or whatever stuff in there relates to Taylor Swift. But the whole thing was like, the whole thing was customized.
Are you literally talking about the sheets you're sleeping in the bed? Are you talking
I'm talking about the
music.
The music.
I know, I messed around. But
actually,
just because you said the hotel, and I was thinking you go to sleep and you're just sleeping on Taylor Swift's lyrics. That's incredible.
Listen, it's a missed merchandise opportunity there, I'm sure.
There we go.
They're saying the economic impact, one guesstimate, I mean, these numbers can be whatever, right? So she's doing 52 shows in the United States. They said the economic impact from those 52 shows in the local economy for hotels, bars, restaurants, transportation is $4 billion. Like, she's adding that to the local economies. And I'm like, that can't be real. But then I don't know if you guys saw, but I think 2 weeks ago, Sweden reported higher inflation numbers because of Beyonce. So Beyonce rolled into town.
That's wild.
And,
What?
F&B goes up, hotel goes up, and that was all tracked by the, I guess, the central bank or whoever is doing the numbers over there. But back to Taylor Swift, I think we're all capturing kind of what is making this so unique. Because you're right, if you were to ask at the beginning of the year, let's do it right now. It's January 2023, 6 months ago, and you're like, okay, there's all this pent-up demand. Which live act could fill it? Let's list off the top of our head right now. Bilal.
I think it would literally just be Taylor Swift, obviously, and Ed Sheeran because he's still beast.
Yeah.
Beyonce, right?
Beyonce.
Drake, yeah.
Maybe
but
Drake?
Does Drake ever hit that level?
I don't think.
That scale?
I don't think he has that international. I mean, he clearly does.
I think he's
but
got
you're
international, but I'm just wondering, like, that level of, I don't know, yeah, because he's like he's been the number one in like hip hop for a while in terms of streaming.
You just don't have the demo breadth with the type of music you make, right? It's like he has absolutely maxed out this. I feel like anybody that would listen to his music, but you don't take kids to a Drake concert, right?
That's what I was going to say. It's like also the scarcity, the fact that she hasn't done an album, done a tour for so long. Like, it's just this scarce resource. Like, okay, now we're going to go. The other thing I was going to mention is the millennial thing. I don't know how much of this is related, but just with the millennial buying power, like, for so many people, this was their childhood, teen, like, sweetheart artist, right? And, like, that is their teen, artist that they grew up with. So for that reason, I think so many of them are like Melina. She's going with her best friend who lives in California, to be fair. Right, and then she's from California, so she can make it.
Is Melina a big Taylor Swift fan?
Yeah, massive. Yeah, I mean, she's not like crazy, but like she likes her music. Yeah, for sure.
What about Bieber?
Bieber is a good one, actually.
Didn't he cancel a world tour?
He did. I don't think he has the same to Bilal's point. I think he's capped on his demo. I think Taylor's...
What about Harry Styles as well, maybe, no?
I don't think Harry Styles in that. I don't think he's in that ballpark. No? I think it is basically what we listed. It's like, okay, somebody was going to hit
Ed Sheeran has the same, like, kid appeal, is radio 50 times a day.
Yeah.
It's true. So, yeah, there are only like a handful of people that could have hit a bill. But even then, you still need some special things to happen, right? So I think you kind of nailed a lot of it, Bilal. It's like her demo, she's been performing for almost 2 decades. So she has 10 albums, 2 decades. All that fandom is built up. Like you said, you're young, you're 13, you're 15 growing up with her. Now you got cheddar, right? You haven't seen her live.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's like they've got the money to do it now.
And we kind of mentioned it. She had this beef with her former record label. I think it's called Big Machine. Jack, is it Big Machine? That's a big national. Yeah. So she had a beef with them over song rights and ownership. So she re-recorded everything, which is one of the most boss moves ever.
That's so gangster.
Yeah, she's like, oh, okay, I'm going to re-record all these albums, and then in the title, so when you go to stream a song, it's going to be called Taylor's version. Like, who do you think Melina and her friends are going to stream when they see those songs? They're going to stream Taylor's version.
Yeah, respect.
So she released a couple of re-recorded albums in 2021. So while she wasn't touring, and while the world wasn't touring or doing any live act, she's still building up that hype machine, right? And the other parts that are relevant, and again, what makes her so uniquely qualified to be the first billion, is she's so online. Like, she has on Tumblr, she's replied to over 30,000 posts with her fans. Like, like an animal,
you say
right?
Tumblr?
Yeah, on Tumblr.
That's
like
probably less than you, Trung.
Yeah. No, I mean, well, the thing is this, she's got a lot less time on her hands too. So she's like, I reply to a lot of people, I do. But she's super online. She knows about every trend. She gets into like online conversations. She's very like, people like interact with her. Like, for a lot of her album releases, she invite like super fans, and like she'll do private listening parties, and those things will go viral when they come out.
The other thing that's cool is like how transparent she's been about the like dealings with the labels, and I think that idea got a lot of people into her music in a much more significant way, and wanting to support outside of that system too, right? Like it buys you a huge, like, everybody's rooting for her to win after she's been so transparent about how her creativity has been, essentially rent affected by rent seeking over the last however long, and it's called
just expanded her. That's another, to your point. It's another thing that expands her audience, right? So she started 52 tours originally. They added 54. So now we'll get to the numbers. So if you do ballpark the 10 million a show, and granted, international dates might not be doing 10 mil a show. You know, like tickets will be cheaper. Maybe less people show up, but I think everything will be sold out. There's no question about it. And one side note, because it was Canada Day on Saturday, we joked about it. Bilal was like, "What do you guys do for Canada Day?" I'm like, "I don't know. We just kind of front run the 4th of July by 3 days, and like that's kind of our celebration." But no Canadian dates, right? She's like, "I don't have time for these small markets." But this goes to why, and Bilal, this circles back to exactly what you said about Melina and her friend flying. One thing that made this so unique was she copied Harry Styles. Harry Styles was doing residencies. He'd post up in a big stadium somewhere in a big city instead of just going to every single city. He went to a giant stadium and made people come to him. And Taylor obviously has the clout to do that. She'll go to the biggest stadium in a region and she'll do 3, 4, 5 nights in a row there, or however many, and the people will go there instead of her having to tour out. And that saves her transportation costs, setup costs, and it also brings everybody. Again, it's just like, it's like this, how do you concentrate attention, right, and energy? It's like, you just stay at one place. You guys come to me, right? And there's an extra added value to it, and now she gets to fill these massive stadiums.
And wait, Trung, these arenas are what, like 50, 60,000 people,
yeah,
right?
50,
this is
60, 70,000, massive.
Incredible.
Like, she's only doing the biggest venues. And
so cool.
And yeah, so that
you
I
can't
think
not be like happy for her though, right? Like that level of what, especially like you said, the way she's shared all the struggles with the music, re-recording it. And I think also with like back in the day with the Kanye West stuff that happened early in her career, like on stage, like there's always just been this like America's sweetheart sort of vibe brewing, and it's really cool. It's really cool to see. I mean,
she's such a. I mean, her dad was a pretty successful Merrill Lynch, I believe Merrill Lynch wealth manager. But they're not dumb. I remember they moved to Nashville for her when she was in her early teens for her music career, and that's a move she wanted to do. They were extremely savvy, right? Like the smartest business people in the music business. So I'll cut through the numbers. I know, Bilal, you've seen some of this. So happy to get actually Jack's opinion too on the merch stuff. So let's just assume we're ballparking calling 10 mil for 106 shows. That's $1 billion. So from Wall Street Journal article, a lot of experts say it's maybe going to be 700, 800, 900, maybe 900 million. The whole point is this. It's going to be one of the top 3 grossing concerts ever. And as everything we've discussed, it's been the perfect storm for why it would happen at this moment. Pent-up demand, she's had 10 years to grow her audience and 10 albums, right? So here we go. Top line is, tell me if you guys know, I don't know anything about the music industry, so this is what Neil wrote. So if it's 10 mil a show, stadium gets about 30%, so that's 3 mil out the door. Staging, so you're setting up the stage, about 20%, that's another 2 mil. And then promoter gets about 10% of the gross. So that gives Taylor 40% in her pocket, roughly, from the 10. That
sounds about right, yeah.
So
and that's not including merch and stuff. Merch is on top of that,
that's not including merch.
Merch is probably pure profit.
Merch is very high margin, obviously. So it sounds like each show is about, you guys will laugh at this. Actually, Jack will laugh at this. Jack, this is my estimate, the average person is spending $50. That feels low, right?
Of 60,000, I don't know.
You think the average person is buying one? Well, actually, if you're buying one piece.
Because a hoodie is like $75, I think.
Yeah.
So
there's some people buying like a
I
t-shirt
bet you on the
that's
top
lower.
end, because I think they restrict it too. I think you're only allowed one of each, or I think there's some
people
restricted
will be selling
supply.
that as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess an extra $50 where you're clearing, I don't know, the merch margins. And they're not that crazy, but they are just like, it's not like they're engineering garments, right? They're just screen printing blanks, of which they're getting a nice bulk discount
right?
on.
So she's getting $25 from each person times 50. That's another mil a show. So now we're at literally 5 mil a show. And that's how it gets to the other headline number. What's 5 mil times 106 shows? That's 500 plus mil to her.
Profit.
So Taylor Swift will make $500 million on this tour.
Incredible.
Pre-tax.
Wow.
But that's some insane stuff right there, yeah? What are
just
our thoughts?
So just to clarify the numbers, so we're saying for the merch specifically, it's 1 to 2 mil a night, sounds like.
Yeah.
That's crazy for just merch in that amount of people. Because it doesn't sound like a lot of $50 per person, but when you say there's 60,000 people, that is $1 million, $2 million per night. That is
to her, yeah.
That's sick.
So those are the numbers. Any thoughts on those numbers other than it's insane?
No, it sounds about right. The numbers from what you've estimated.
So she's gonna grow. The tour will gross $1 billion, and she'll walk away with $500 million pre-tax. I mean, listen, well earned, right? I mean, there's one more part of it that I want to add, which is we alluded to how internet savvy she is, but there's one thing that is so unique about what she's doing. Each concert she does, I think, 44 songs. It's 3 to 4 hours, 44 songs, going through all her hits. But each show has one special live act or one special unique thing. So there's like an Easter egg for each show, and it keeps all the fans involved. So like people are guessing, hey, what's the Easter egg she's gonna drop at this next show? Well, or like, you know, you start tracking it in like fandom style, just like how we watch Succession, right? It's like, oh, she's doing a show tomorrow. I wonder what the Easter egg is gonna be. So she's keeping everyone engaged, everyone on the edge of their seat, super online, because all these videos end up on TikTok and Twitter. Mm-hmm. So it's like Jack, I love your thoughts on it. It's like an ongoing event, right? Like live stream basically 24/7. That feeling, even though it isn't.
Yeah, it's amazing how they I think even without the live tour, I don't remember specific examples of this, but you know when people like the mob descends in defense of the pop star or the celebrity that has the like everlasting base of support, this just strengthens that by an order of magnitude because there's a very specific thing happening every day versus waiting for people to put music out or like it keeps the story happening in real time. And I'm like so far outside of how people actually talk about that stuff that sounds, you know, it's hard to believe that does have, like, keeps the resonance that it does, but it makes sense now.
Well, I have a question for you guys. You know, we've talked a lot about the high end of music still making money, but there's been conversation for 20 years around musicians not making as much because of streaming, or I'd say like 10, 15 years probably is more accurate. But how does this compare to other forms of, you know, entertainment? Because there's, you know, music at this level on the high end. I'm curious if anyone's coming close to this with live events. The only other thing I'm thinking of is like Kevin Hart when he did comedy in arenas and that, but I think that was just really good for comedy. I doubt it comes at this level because this is...
there's like, no chance. Yeah. There's just no chance.
For music, it's just another level, right?
I mean, you can fill, guys like Chappelle could fill 10, 15, 20. Can they do 60, 100 nights?
But that's the thing. I think Kevin Hart was making the most money because he was doing arenas and he was selling out, like, I think 30, 40,
like
50,000.
The O2?
Yeah, the O2. But even just like, I could be getting this wrong, but I remember hearing some other comedians talking about who makes the most money. And like, because I'm a fan of Kevin Hart, but he's definitely not like the best comedian. Like there's other comedians that are way better. But just his style of comedy meant he could get families out. He could get, it was a little bit cleaner by that point.
I'm Googling it right now.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, he makes a shit ton from touring.
Yeah, but the thing is, I'm just thinking logically around Taylor Swift ticket prices are $50 to $900. Like $900 is the VIP price. And I think with comedy, you're not really doing that, right? Like you might be charging $100 a show or something like that, but
dude, you're right. He crushed it, man. He's had years.
What's his numbers? Yeah,
he's had years where he's made 50 to 100 mil touring.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, and that
Gervais was up there at one point.
Who's that? Sorry,
Ricky Gervais.
Oh yeah.
He had some good years.
Definitely.
But I don't know. This is like from the few people I've met that work in music, it's like touring is where people have their payday, basically. You know, like everything else is in service of that. Like, obviously people want to make music and stream it and get distribution for it, but crossing the chasm into the real world and performing is where like the bigger economic opportunity is.
Yeah.
I was actually talking to someone the other day, like entertainment lawyer, and the difference between, actually he was explaining to me like how different cities become really good for music artists. It's like you have to have venues that cater to all these different sizes. So you have to be able to fill up 1,000-seat show.
It's like the
3,000, a 5,000, and then it just goes parabolic from there, right? Because if you can get 10,000, you can get 50. But the difference between like a 1,000 and a 5,000 person show is,
that's a big jump.
as an artist, is massive, even compared from like 10 to 50 or 50 to 100, because you're just not in the category of like stadium filler. I think it was on what's it called, the podcast, those two lads at the Creator podcast, they interviewed Schultz.
Oh yeah, I know you're talking about
It's
Colin
Creator something.
Colin Smear.
Colin Smear.
Yeah. There's a great bit on that where Andrew Schultz talks about his TikTok distribution. I think we might have even had this conversation where he's like showing up to these cities that he'd never expect to have an audience in, and it's just packed out. Like I think it was Columbus or something. He said like he expected to go there and be like, nobody's gonna show up to this, but like the flattening of distribution that came from TikTok meant that, you know, 100-person comedy club, you can fill up anywhere in America now because you have the TikTok distribution.
That's a good example though of like the comedian arc, like the progression, because they go from basically paying money to go to a comedy, to do comedy at like an open mic, basically. Like you often don't pay, but you might like, you earn your right by convincing 10 friends to come, so they're buying tickets. So you're pretty much paying in your labor. And there used to be things where they would have to go out on the street and like, ticket and sell tickets for the club and stuff like that. So that's essentially where you start. But then you go from, okay, now people know me. There's 100 people in the club. Like everyone's just signed up for that night. They didn't come to see me. Then it goes, oh, I'm Andrew Schultz. I'm, Ricky Gervais, and I'm actually selling out the whole comedy club across the country. That's a few hundred a night. But then they get to like theaters, which is a few thousand. And then you're right, like the arena size. That's why Kevin Hart was such a cool example, because no one really does arenas, really. Like I went to Chris Rock at the O2. I think that's maybe 20,000 people when I went like many years ago. So at that level, you can maybe do it. But the other thing is, comedy in an arena, in my opinion, is not that great. Like, because you need that room, the echo, like the energy of the small room is so much better. Whereas like a stadium, if you're in a stadium for Taylor Swift, or you even like, I've seen like Drake, Kanye, like these guys, it can still be a great show because you're singing the same songs. Whereas a comedy show, if you're hearing the same joke over and over again, it's not funny, right? Versus like you going to a music show and you want to hear the same song. Like you guys literally heard Jay-Z and Kanye play that one song 9 times or something, right? So that's the difference between the two.
10 times.
10 times. But that's interesting. But yeah, just to conclude that, do you think there are other categories that would even come close to this in the future, let's say?
There's music it's
video
music
games
is its own
in
thing.
Asia.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true, actually. The video gaming one is interesting because that's closer to sports, though, almost. Like the level of people. What about this? This is a long shot, but not podcasting as a whole, but let's say Joe Rogan. I reckon Joe Rogan could sell out. I mean, he does sell out comedy arenas.
He's a comedian
He
level.
does it with Dave Chappelle. But like for his podcast, I imagine he had... and I'm literally thinking out loud here, so I'm not saying I agree.
I'll say this, I'm going to double down on the music. It's just nothing is more of a mind virus than music, right? It's like, it's like a good song, it just, 2-3 minutes, you're cooked for life,
It's that nostalgic thing as well. All right, so maybe the question is less around can it beat music, but just around who can fill up arenas. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think Joe Rogan could fill up arena if he got 2-3 massive podcast guests and he combined it with some other stuff. I'm pretty sure where he's got like 12 million people listening an episode, like he can 100% get 20, 30, 50,000 people out.
Mr. Beast.
That's interesting.
That's an interesting example.
That's a good example.
Live, like, hold on to the car until you pass out or something. People will queue up for that, I'm sure.
Arena. I don't know how well that would be. What about like magicians? Magicians are quite interesting. David Blaine.
David Copperfield. I saw Copperfield.
I thought you were going to say Blaine,
Yeah, he was doing a stupid number. Yeah, Vegas. Vegas residency.
We should do residency breakdown. That's fascinating to me, man.
That's like DJs as well.
Maroon 5.
Britney Spears
Britney
in Vegas.
Spears. Who else? Calvin
have you
Harris.
guys
I remember
seen?
reading
Who have you guys
about
Calvin
him.
seen?
Harris is the number one DJ
I saw
every year
Celine
or something.
Dion. Have you guys seen?
Celine
have you guys
Dion?
done?
No,
Have you
that's
guys done a
amazing, man.
residency? Have you seen any?
No.
Have you
No.
Okay. No.
Not her. No. I've seen Calvin Harris, to be fair, but
Okay.
that was that was Fabric London. If you've ever been there, Jack, absolute
I have,
banger
yeah.
of a place.
I have.
Trung, this is like the you've heard the music dubstep, like that was a big thing like 10, 15, 20 years ago. That was like the home of dubstep for a while.
Bilal
A
down
lot
in
of-
his super dry T-shirt.
Yeah, yes, super dry. Do you know what? Actually, I literally went to the Calvin Harris concert the night before I flew out to Dublin to start my first job at Google. I probably
Nice.
wore a suit to Calvin Harris, to be honest. But
yeah.
no, that was fun. But yeah, we should definitely do that. A Vegas residency breakdown as well, because
I
there
guess,
are
yeah,
so many
you know
people
what?
still making a living from that.
I get it's still music, but I guess just different category. Like DJ, like it's such a different.
That's crazy, though, right?
Like showing up and like mixing music for a
It's
couple
incredible.
hours and filling up a place, and obviously the AV setups. I know a guy who went to school with the bloke who does Martin Garrix's laser stuff. So every venue they go to, it's like you drive like two of these massive Arctic
Trucks full of stuff.
Yeah, and just like program these lasers depending on the shape of the build. Like the production that goes into these things is
Yeah.
insane, man. Roll
Yeah.
into town for one night, build that thing, and then you're back on the road the next day.
That is
Crazy.
sick.
Crazy.
Gotta do that. All right. Trung, anything else on Taylor Swift before we wrap that up and talk
Actually,
about...
I'll do one thing for you guys. A nice little historical analogy. The Beatles. So we're talking about the energy that's happening right now. You guys probably know, obviously, famously in 1963, the Beatles showed up on the Ed Sullivan Show, and that started their Beatlemania
I
rise
did
over
not
the
know
rest
that,
of the
no,
decade.
to be honest.
Oh, you did. So
No, it was a very specific
one of the
fun
most
fan fact.
famous one of the most famous like pop culture images of the 20th century is the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. 70
Okay,
million
do you know
people
what? Now
watched
you
it.
say that,
Very
I know the
uncultured
picture you're talking
You've
about.
definitely seen
Bilal.
it. Yeah,
that's I know the picture,
well,
but I
you know
didn't know
exactly.
who it was.
You definitely know that image, right?
Yeah, no, the
That
image
was
I
when
know,
they
yeah.
broke through in America. But the crazy thing is, if you actually look at the history of that, I think that happened in March. No one in America even knew the Beatles in December of 1962. And no one knew about them. And then within 3 months, they were the hottest shit in the world and then dominated the rest of the decade. But there's a lot more similarities and a lot of like happenstance involved in how that happened. But one thing that is of note was JFK was assassinated in the previous fall in November 1960. Wait, I'm getting the numbers. 1963. And so this is 64. Sorry. Just fast forward everything I said by year. But the whole point is this: JFK was assassinated, and what basically happened was that there was a very somber mood in America. Like the country was, and especially the youth of the country were looking for something to kind of pick them
To
up.
uplift them, yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't so different. I mean, very different circumstances, but I'm talking about a tragedy or something you have to deal with as a country, which in our case was pandemic and COVID, and like all this pent up like kind of demand for like an emotional release.
Yeah.
And the Beatles basically filled that void. So just to confirm, they came in February 1964 on the Ed Sullivan Show. So JFK was killed on November 22nd, 1963. So 1 year. I made a 1 year snafu. Rafa, you can edit all that to make me sound
Trung's
smart.
so annoyed that you got that you messed
That I
up the
missed that.
date. History
But I thought that was an
major
interesting
over here.
parallel, right? Whereas that the national mood was a contributing factor to something that
definitely.
became, because they have compared this Taylor Swift tour to like the Beatlemania. That's kind of what it feels like, right? But anyways, that's it.
Boys,
That's
I'm
all I
looking
have
up
on
some
that.
trivia. I'm looking up some trivia here.
go-
Biggest
go.
gigs of all time.
Okay,
Go on,
hit
hit
us.
us.
What do you think the largest attendance of a live music event ever is?
Oh, wasn't this Metallica in the Soviet Union? No,
That was
1.5
also an
million?
incredible
Close.
guess, though.
You're close. You're
Okay.
number two. You're number two
Okay.
with that one.
Damn,
Okay,
that
what's
was
number
wait,
one?
Is it
Number
one
two-
of those? Go on.
Number two was Metallica in Moscow, 1.6 million people.
Okay, this is towards
Wow.
the end of the Cold War, and they're like letting in some American acts. What's number
a
one?
visual this is. Number one is Jean-Michel Jarre, also in Moscow in 1997, 3.5 million people.
Oh my
What?
goodness! What
Yeah.
year?
1997.
Wow.
Rolling
who is
Stones
that?
played in Rio on the beach. 1.5 million people. I was looking up Bilal. I was looking up Nebworth, Oasis, those famous Oasis gigs, which similar story arc Trung to the Beatles, where these lads writing music in the back of a chip shop, and then a year later,
chip shop.
Mate,
the
you boys haven't
documentary is
seen,
so good.
Yeah.
Is that what you're about to say?
Supersonic.
Sorry, go on. So good.
Great film. That
Trung,
is
have you watched this?
must
The
watch.
Oasis
movie?
documentary.
Supersonic.
No, I
Yes.
need to because I know Oasis are the baddest MS of all time.
Man, they're so good.
Yeah.
They're
The
so
Gallagher
good.
It's
brothers?
such great. It's
Incredible
so good.
characters.
And
Still,
there's
they're still
speculation that
characters
these
now.
boys are going to get back together. There's some speculation they
yeah.
go back on tour. I got
That would
a
be
little
wild.
personal trivia. I went to the last ever Oasis gig, not
That's
knowing
incredible.
it would be the last one.
Wait,
Just
where was
happened to
that?
be. Cardiff.
Cardiff, when
Millennium
you were
Stadium.
at uni there.
Mm.
Millennium Stadium. Wow, that's a throwback. Because, Trung, this is a fun fact. Millennium Stadium, when Wembley Stadium, which is the home of football, like they were, doing construction on it for several years. Millennium Stadium in Cardiff
The
became the
default.
place where all the finals were played. And I've completely forgot about that. It's actually a really beautiful stadium.
Man, it brings back some memories, man. Cardiff train station, just around the corner from
Super dry jeans on, not
Yeah.
even the t-shirt.
Yeah. the
G-Star Raw.
Weatherspoons next to a Millennium Stadium. Any day you could go in there I think it opens at 7 o'clock in the morning, and it's busy, mate. Doesn't matter the day
you've
of the
been
week.
there at 7 a.m., yeah.
Horrendous.
Trung, have you heard of Weatherspoons? It's like a chain pub, basically. It's basically a pub,
No,
but it's like a chain.
what it's like the McDonald's of pubs.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's perfectly put.
Or is it the Pret a Manger of pubs? I love Pret, man.
Oh, Pret
No,
is
it's definitely not
incredible,
Pret a Manger. No, we're definitely, it's like,
No, it's the more the McDonald's, yeah. All right,
Okay, hold
boys,
on a
let's
second.
go on.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
we
well.
should skip. I actually think we should skip affirmative action because this
Go on.
is like I
Yeah,
wanted
this
to
is
look through
perfect.
my notes. It's like an hour-long chat.
Well,
Affirmative
let's
action.
get on to the travel then, yeah. That's
Yeah,
fine.
let's get
Affirmative
on-
action we can
Okay.
skip.
We can. It's also, to be fair, none of us are even American, so we don't have to. I don't want to be. I don't want to be accused that
Adopted
I'm
Americans here,
putting
man.
my nose in other people's businesses.
No, that's so good. Go on.
But okay. So what did you have for travel, Bilal? Because I'm happy to.
No,
talk
go
about-
for it. I'll let you run with it. I can add in some stuff if needed, but you had this idea to talk about it, so
Okay.
you run with it.
So, well, let's just start with Bilal. Tell us about your Lisbon trip. Why don't you tell us about? Because Bilal just did some residencies. Bilal just did some residencies in different cities. Why don't you tell
yeah.
Why don't you tell us and the listeners what you've been up to?
Yeah, the summary is I spent 6 weeks in Europe, which was incredible, but I went to Berlin, Amalfi Coast in Italy, London, Lisbon, and then back to Italy, Lake Garda after that. So that was 6 weeks, really amazing, really memorable trip. I've done quite a few of these long-term travel things, like where I spend a few months in different countries, but this was the one that I moved around the most. I actually don't like moving around that much. I kind of prefer just staying in a place for like a month or two. It's like a very different experience than just visiting for, like a week or two. Obviously, I know like not everyone can do that, which is understandable, but this one, because of lots of different events going on, I kind of had to keep moving. But it was probably the most active trip I've done in terms of moving around in Europe anyway. So really, really incredible. I had a great time, man.
Give me some
But yeah.
Lisbon highlights. What was a Lisbon highlight?
Have you guys been to Lisbon? I think Trung has.
I've been to Lisbon.
But there's so many great things. But if you guys ever go to Lisbon, you have to try the pastel de nata. Have you ever tried the custard kind of dessert? And they're like everywhere. They're like €1 or €2 each. I'm not saying that was the highlight, but
The
it was
one with the egg custard?
yeah, it's like the
Bro,
egg custard thing. It's so
Those
good.
are so famous in East Asia because of the
because of
Portuguese and
the-
Macau. Yeah. So I used to
yeah.
roll up. I went to Macau a few times when I was living in Vietnam, and there used to be a Portuguese colony
colony or
essentially.
something. Yeah.
So you roll up there, and they got them delicious little egg tarts.
Oh man.
But Bilal, my favorite part. Did you ever go to the seafood restaurants there and then get a steak sandwich for dessert?
It's
Are you guys familiar with this?
No, I did not know. I mean, I probably had a steak sandwich, but I didn't have it for dessert. But is that a thing? Is that like
It's 100% a thing.
I didn't see
Steak
that.
sandwich for dessert. Do you want to? It's called a prego. I
Oh,
mean, you probably
okay,
saw that.
yeah.
The beef
Okay.
prego or the steak prego. Do you know why it's a dessert? You will love this. This is from
No.
Anthony Bourdain.
Fun fact,
When
fan,
when you eat at a seafood restaurant, right, and you're drinking, there's not a lot of soaking up of the alcohol.
Okay,
Right?
got it.
Seafood
Yeah,
is all very heavy. So you're eating your crab, you're eating shrimps, you're eating clams, delicious, but you ain't really filling up the
It's
stomach.
not soaking up like a
up
steak sandwich.
that you need a steak sandwich, right?
Yeah.
So, people, it was the greatest thing. I rolled up to this restaurant that Anthony Bourdain from one of his episodes, rest in peace. And afterwards, I'm like, do you guys still do the steak sandwich to dessert? So like, oh yeah, I'm like, give me one.
Oh man, wait, this was in Lisbon though.
Yeah, this was in Lisbon, and it was like, it was the greatest dessert I've ever had in my life, man. You're eating a greasy
it's a
steak sandwich for dessert.
Do you know what? I will say though, there was so many. I mean, like walking. You know how I love walking, but like walking around there is so challenging because of all the slopes and stuff, right? Like you're going up. Yeah, and it's also just it's really fun. But after a while, like I have a bit of a bad knee. I've had a bad knee for a while, so it's not the best for me. Like climbing up all those steps every day. But there were so many cool. Like there's this one square, which I'm pretty sure a lot of like the international people, expats like live there. It's kind of an expensive area. But just on a Friday night, you could go there, and there were these. The first night, the whole of June was basically a festival. Like there were events going on every day. And actually, fun fact, we saw Tim Ferriss was in the same place where we were hanging out outside. Just before I got there, I was with my friend who's like a big advertiser for his podcast called Four Sigmatic. They're like a mushroom company. So there was some connection there. But it was
your
just
buddy?
like,
did you meet him?
Yeah. One of my friends. Yeah, he was with me in Lisbon.
So did you meet Tim?
I didn't meet him. No. But I was just saying it was this place where like everyone's just outside. There's barbecues going on. That they do like the sardine thing where they're cooking the sardines outside. But it's just such a great vibe, like being outside with the great weather on this square. And then I think that the next night we went there again, and there's like this natural wine bar in the corner. I forgot the name. And the two owners come out and they're just serving people, give you like all these tasters. And then they encourage you. It's like the opposite of America. They encourage you to go into the park with the glass of wine and like go and meet people and stuff like that. So it's just like stuff like that was really, really fun. You couldn't, I didn't even know like you can do that there. So that was pretty fun. Yeah, going down to the coast, there's like the beautiful coastline is incredible as well. So definitely recommend, I want to spend some more time in Portugal for sure, man.
Let's start getting to it then. Let's start hitting the questions. What is the best city in Europe to visit? Jack. First.
Yeah. Florence, my favorite.
Ooh, tell us more. Tell us more.
That's a good shout.
So I was not a continental Europe appreciator until I moved to America. So all of my European trips when I was living in the UK was
Magaluf.
Yeah, Ibiza. That's basically it. Like I'll go to Ibiza twice or three times every summer for 10 years.
Buddies off at the car factory.
Yeah,
Jack
exactly
and his boys
right.
are taking a direct flight to Ibiza.
Yeah, half an hour flight to Bristol Airport, £19 on a little EasyJet flight.
Oh my God, incredible. Wow.
Yeah. And then when Celia studied abroad in Italy when she was at uni.
How many years?
One couple months, I think, just one semester. And always was like convincing me that we got to go visit Italy. And it took me a long while to basically take the suggestion. We went, I don't know when it was. It was actually just before COVID we went. So when was that? I actually think Celia got COVID there because, remember they said they found it in the water or something over there. Like this was the end of 2019, I think.
Found it in the water, yeah.
No, they were testing the water there and they did. They found it later.
Yeah, I remember. You talking about Italy, yeah?
Yeah.
And it was like, that was the first one in Europe to get hit really bad. I remember that was
we got
really
back
terrible.
And she was sick for weeks and weeks after that. We probably should go see a doctor, but it cleared up eventually. But anyway, Florence and Rome I think we did 10 days. And it was like end of the year, so we did the Christmas with my family in the UK after that. And just a class trip, like a massive appreciation for architecture, history. It was cool. At Florence, I did feel like would have been like a livable place. I don't know. It's always, you always get that sense, and then maybe you go somewhere and it's different to be a resident there.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it did feel like a place that we could at least spend a
Some
good
extended
amount of time
there.
there.
Yeah, it's so picturesque there, man. It's like everywhere
It's
you
class.
look. If you do any photography, it's like the perfect place because there's all the shadows and then all the old buildings, the colors, the dome, like the dome or whatever. We're talking
Lindy,
about
man.
Florence still.
It's Lindy.
Trunk dropped off. Yeah, it's Lindy. It's Lindy.
You feel something about it, right? Like the amount of, like, plenty of people have said this in a very articulate way, but the architecture of a place does seep into your experience of it, right? It's like, it's so thoughtfully constructed, so much history, so many people appreciate the history and maintain the history of it, that it does shape your experience being there. And then Rome, I appreciated for different reasons. It wasn't somewhere that I would consider living, I don't think, but man, just
crazy history.
Obviously, Colosseum, Vatican, just going around all these.
Yeah,
you've done
I
that,
love the
right?
way people call it the outdoor museum, right? It's just like, it's an outdoor museum.
Yeah, some of the stuff that, like, actually in Florence, one of my favorite places was the Galileo Museum. It's like basically a telescope museum there, like the shit that these boys were doing 600 years ago.
That shit these boys were doing
is unbelievable.
Yeah, these lads were up to some crazy shit, man.
Galileo and the boys, that is so
crazy.
funny.
It is incredible.
Did you guys go to Tuscany?
No, I've been to, I guess maybe this is Tuscany. I went to Bologna for a gig I did with Ferrari back in the day. That was fun.
No way.
That's
Maranello. Yeah, that was fun.
Tuscany is pretty hard to beat, though. That is.
Wait, we were talking about steak in Lisbon. You know the Florentine steak game is real strong.
Incredible.
Yeah, they got the fridge up front with all the cuts.
You appreciate it. You know when you're traveling and, like, listen, you're at the beginning of your travel, you're always like more loose with your wallet, but towards the end, you're like, I gotta
every day. Like,
so, like, during our Italy trip, when we went in 2019, fall 2019, we were in Florence on the 12th day of a 17-day trip, and at that point, Trunk Stunner was like, yo, we might have to eat McDonald's every meal.
You gotta pull it back, yeah.
No, but we found a Florentine steak place, which was like €20, feeds 3 people. I think we hit there 3 nights in a row. But that's one of the joys of traveling, is when you're on a little bit of a budget and you just find one place that just slaps so hard.
And also, honestly, being in Europe right now, like, just coming back last night, I went for dinner, I scanned my card, and on the Chase app, I get like the little notification. And for the last 6 weeks, I'm in my head automatically doing the conversion, like, oh, that was not that bad in dollar terms. But this one, I was like, oh, wait, that's the same amount. And I hadn't clocked that I was back, sort of thing. But just the amount of, like, just the fact in the US, you add tip and tax to everything, like 20% tip plus tax, whatever that is, like almost 10%. It's just so much cheaper. Like, for even like going to a fancy restaurant there, everything's so much cheaper with the purchasing power of the dollar right now. And if you think in Bitcoin terms, even more, up 80% in a year or whatever it is. But
am I right or wrong? Is 1 Bitcoin still worth 1 Bitcoin? Is that still hold?
And you're still standing, so we know where we're at still. But
boys, I think Sailor just bought another 150 mil or something.
I saw that.
Didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Well, MicroStrategy did,
yeah.
So actually, I got a good Florentine story. I have a parking ticket from the Italian government for Florida. They somehow found me.
I got one of those too.
Yeah, I'm like, bro, I'm paying this, man. Like, first of all, have you seen your street? I'm supposed to figure out as a tourist how to park in this mess. Like, each is like 1.5 lanes, and I don't even think it was a parking ticket. I think they said I sped through a stop sign. I'm like, how do you even know this? How desperate are the city finances? I know they're desperate.
This is like a whole
joke,
thing.
Right?
There's like, go on Reddit, man. There's like a whole subreddit of this. I stayed at a hotel in Bologna, and the hotel was in this like historic zone that you're not supposed to drive into. So I was going in and out of it like 7 times a day, and just
$5,000.
it's just so many pieces of paper mailed about it.
Think about how bad your public finances have to be, where your way to fund the city, like the garbage pickup, is to hunt down tourists, send them, dude. How ridiculous is it?
Man.
It's just so ridiculous. But I love that. Bilal, for you, what's your favorite European city?
Do you know what? It's hard to, it's annoying to say the favorite because obviously I'm from London and it's like an obvious basic answer like London, Paris, or those. So I'm just going to say one that isn't, one I haven't even been to that I would like to go to. So let's say, so Istanbul. I've been to Turkey like 5 times, but never to Istanbul. And I've saved that for like another trip.
You've been to Turkey 5 times, you never went to Istanbul?
I know, yeah. I went to like all the coast region like many times as a kid and like as a young adult. But yeah, and Istanbul is kind of like, you know, when you're, I don't know if you had this as well, Jack, but when you're living in Europe, you kind of take for granted how easy it is to get to all these places, right?
Barcelona actually as well, Bilal, yeah.
Oh, well, you never been to Barcelona?
No, I'm saying that's a killer city. That's a great city.
That's a good shout as well. But what I was saying was just there's so many places that I just haven't been to in Europe because I was like, oh, I can just go any weekend, and I just never got to going because I left. And so now when I go back, it is crazy how like you can get a £20 trip to a lot of these places, and then even if you're a student, you can stay in a hostel. Like I stayed in hostels for £5 a night or something like that.
Or you can spend $1,000 to go to Boston or $2,000.
Yeah, exactly. Seriously, that's literally what it is. Exactly. But yeah, so Trung, I won't say, because to say anything definitively is the best, obviously it depends what you're looking for, but I would say...
He's saying there is no second best, I think.
Yeah, there is no second. I would say that I think what's interesting with Turkey, and maybe we're going to do beach stuff later, but Turkey is a very interesting part of Europe because it's both Europe and Asia. So I think it's like 15% Europe, 85% Asia, depending on who you ask. And I think Istanbul I've never been to, but looks incredible, incredible history, obviously. Turkish food is banging, people are friendly. And for me, growing up, going with my family, I was talking about this on the trip, being from Muslim background, I realized how many places we went to that were also Muslim countries and how much of a difference it made. Like, because it just, if you're eating like halal food, for example, like you can't, if you're going all the way to Portugal, you're going to Spain and you're eating fish every day, it gets like very boring. So for us growing up, going there, that's why we went so many times. Because you could eat steak every day or you could eat whatever. So yeah, I'd say that as a place I haven't actually been and I'm excited to
That's a bit of a cop-out, actually. So I'm going to push you here. What's your favorite European, like, you're not the best, your favorite?
Again, it's like kind of a boring answer, but like London, just because I'm from there and I know it really, really well.
Okay,
but
pass, next.
But it is an incredible city, especially in the summer. You need to go in the summertime now. But yeah, so I mean, there's so many places. But yeah.
Okay, hold on. Explain, because I was just in London. I saw you in London. Yeah. Tell me why London slaps in the summer.
I think in the summer because it rains so much during the rest of the year, or like it's not the best weather. So when the summer hits, everyone gets on it and everyone's excited. There's so many things going on, so many events, so like anything you want to find. Kind of like New York. The reason I love New York, you get that same vibe in London, but there's also so many parks. So I'm not saying necessarily for like history, though. There's obviously a lot of history to see there as well, but more like lifestyle-wise, it's just very interesting. There's so many things going on that, like, obviously the food you actually get. I think there's a really bad old stereotype of bad food in England. Like
we've discussed it on this show. Yeah,
we've discussed it on the show. But London food is actually really good. Like it's like big city, right?
You can get any of the top level food in the world.
Exactly. And there's actually like very like amazing restaurants and stuff, and good cheap eats. Also the kebab slap. So you gotta really just make the most of it. But yeah, I will say I'll say like Berlin was also a place I've been to a couple of times now, and that is a really interesting city again for the history stuff. If you want to go do that sort of stuff, but also it's just a very livable. That too. But like nightlife wise, you can go out on a Friday and stay out till Monday if you want. Like that, people do that literally. Yeah. And then the food's again incredible. It's like a very international city that isn't London, so I think that's again, it's not like an unknown place, but yeah, obviously a really, really fun place as well.
Let me keep pressing you on London. I like where this is going.
Yeah.
So 2 questions. This is a pure touristy guy lens. So is Hyde Park the best park in London?
I don't think so. I think it's a good park, but there's so many nice parks. Like Primrose Hill is nice. Hampstead Heath is really beautiful, but they're kind of a bit further out. Kew Gardens is nice. But yeah, I mean, Hyde Park is nice, but it's kind of like Central Park. It's like, it is really nice, but then again, as a tourist myself, I always hate being around lots of tourists. So that is probably one of the most touristy ones. So you're just around people with selfie sticks and stuff a lot more. But it's still a nice park, but it's not as beautiful. Like Hampstead Heath is actually really great because you get like the woodsy sort of part, but also the kind of sitting on the lawn part if you want to do that and have your Pimm's cup going, a little picnic going. So yeah, I'd say that's probably my favorite one.
One more London summer question. So I'm on that London Eye ferry tour. The 45 minutes. Yeah. You know, I get in there, sit down with the wife and kid, get myself that 6-pound wine, the one that comes in the plastic bottle. So I'm on that ferry and I'm seeing a lot of people at these oyster places, right? On the River Thames.
Oh, on the side. Yeah.
Do those things slap? Do you ever go to those things?
I feel like I've probably gone back in the day, but I feel like like a lot of, like in any big city, there's a lot of the tourist trap places where they're charging a crazy amount of money for like mediocre stuff. So it could easily be one of those because of the location.
For sure.
I don't know for sure,
so
to be honest.
That's not like a thing you're like, oh yeah, you got to definitely do that.
But there are a few places, honestly, near the Thames, like Gordon's Wine Bar. Have you heard of that? Or I might have told you about it. That's like the oldest wine cellar in London. It's like 600 years old or something crazy. You walk downstairs, it's like this crazy, cozy wine cellar place. But yeah, there's a lot of, like any big city, if you can find a pocket that you love, but it might take a little time. And a lot of people go to London, don't love it straight away, which is fair enough. And but I think, yeah, obviously I'm defensive over it, but I do think if I'm picking one, I kind of have to pick that, you know. What about you, Trung?
Jack mentioned Barcelona.
Barcelona's sick, to be fair.
Jack, you're talking about, you guys are talking about the architecture, like seeping into you. You're just like, we talked about it last year, right?
One.
When after I came
ham.
back, buddy, yeah. Well, they come and they're like, dude, we're talking about
Hamon.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt the architecture.
No, but I mean, like that's equally as good, right? Like that's the other part of it. It's like,
yeah, that's
dude,
hard to beat Barcelona.
Slap. Like here,
so
for
good.
me, this is not going to be a controversial statement.
I just love Jack saying random Spanish stuff. He's going to patatas bravas.
Yeah. What's the beer? What's the Spanish beer?
I know you're talking about the red label now.
Yeah. Oh man,
it's like €2.
So many good memories.
That's actually
of that,
a nice
man.
one. You can just walk around with that, like get patatas bravas and a bunch of food. Sorry, every Spanish-speaking person is going to be horrified by pronunciation. But go on, Trung. Sorry, you're right. Like Barcelona is definitely up there.
That's it. This is what I bought last year. Is the Gaudi book. We talked about him.
Beautiful.
He got the Sagrada Familia. His gardens, the stuff that he's worked. Dude,
oh
you're talking
incredible.
About one person in a city, and that's a place that I would consider living for many, many months with my family.
Yeah.
And this is not a controversial statement at all. I can't mess with Northern European prices, man. I like going to the Med, and it's just...
you're
insane.
right, and the weather's sick. There's also a beach there. That's what's cool. There aren't many proper cities.
Oh, big city beaches,
Yeah, there's like Rio, I guess, has a beach. Lisbon has beaches. Yeah, but
Sydney,
like this is like actually
it's
a
up
pretty
there, right?
good beach.
There's like 10 cities in the world with a super high quality beaches, like near the central business district is one of them. The other thing about Barcelona, well, I'll tell you what's interesting about Europe in general. You guys probably, let me give you the economics perspective, and you tell me if it resonates. Is like Northern Europe's obviously richer than Southern Europe. So France, Germany, England, in the north, much wealthier. Same with Scandinavia on a per capita basis. Where do they spend all that money? In the south. Like the most visited places in Europe are Athens, Rome, the coasts, and but it's been considered by many. It's like basically because since the launch of the euro, the big controversy is that not every country has taxing power or raising because it's all under one currency. But actually, one way that you transfer money within that European Union or under the euro currency regime is people from the north go down, take their their higher earning power and spend it in the South. And that's one way you distribute money.
Yeah.
Whereas in America, it's the federal government that's distributing the money. But this is a way
It's the
of making it
equivalent of
happen
trickle
here.
down country
literally.
basis in the EU.
No, it's seriously.
Estrella is Bilal, by the
Go
way.
get your patatas bravas and cerveza and spread the love.
I
But
love
Trung,
Barca.
I'm good for time, but we should probably move on to some other questions as well. By the way, I also want to point out that we're doing a 4th of July episode and talking about Europe, which is incredible. So
Yeah, well, we already covered Taylor.
that's true. That's true.
Yeah, right.
But
so
that's a great shout. Barcelona is definitely incredible. Yeah, great shout.
well, what would you know? We'll include it right now. What is what we just end it with this? Go simple. We're good for time. What is your favorite place in America to visit?
That's a hard one. Yeah, I'm trying to think.
I got a lot of different ones.
Go on, Jack.
You gotta go frickin' Northern California,
Yeah.
boys.
Northern,
Big
not
Sur.
Southern California.
Big Sur.
Yeah.
Where else? Montana. Crazy.
Oh, you like that? Have you done this with Celia, or you did this with your work?
Both. Done
Okay.
I did a job in Big Sky, Montana, which is like Yellowstone National Park. Mental.
Just
Insane. Me and Celia went to this place called Glacier National Park in Montana. Incredible. And then Big
Yeah.
Sur, I've done a bunch of work out there and done. But one of my favorite places in the world is Carmel by the Sea. You ever heard of this place?
Oh, yeah. Maybe because you've told me about it, but
Yeah, it's like, you know where Pebble Beach is? Amazing golf course. They do like a huge car show out there. That's why I was out there a bunch of times. But there's like these little pockets, towns in like bays that all have a beach in there. I think it would be like Celia convinced me a long time ago that you'd probably get a little bit bored living there with, one coffee shop. But it was like as a place to go and like, spend a few months chilling out. It's hard to beat.
the common theme here is the unplugging from the big city grind.
Exactly.
Right? Like, right?
Yeah.
That's
that's true.
Those are great. That's
a
that
good
was
shout.
a
What
great
about
answer.
you, Trunk?
In America, so I lived in Boston, been in California a bunch. Does Hawaii count? I love Hawaii, man. I love Honolulu.
Yeah.
I think it does count, yeah.
Oh my goodness, Vegas. So I've been to Maui and Honolulu, and they're so different, right? Because Honolulu is like basically Vegas on the beach, and Maui is its own resorty thing. I way prefer the
That's a
Vegas on the
tagline
beach.
right there.
Yeah.
Tagline for an
I
ad
love- bro.
campaign.
So for the listeners that had been, like, if you've been at the Halekulani, legendary hotel, I was there and I'm like, I'd never been to Honolulu. I think I went 3 years ago, and I'm like, this is the greatest place ever. This is like, I'm like, Hawaii, I get it. I just 100% get it. I love the fusion of food too. You get all the Japanese, the Pacific Islander influence, the Filipino influence. And in terms of Jack's answer, like a site, I probably haven't seen enough sites, and I owe it to myself and my family to do that drive from Vancouver down, all the way down to Southern California.
Down the West Coast.
Down the West Coast. That drive is supposed to be incredible. But the one that has definitely stood out to me was the Grand Canyon. I was like, when I saw that, I'm like, this is, like, we're talking about mental. I was like, this is insane. And it never ends, right? It's just like, you see one section of the Grand Canyon. We did it from a tour from Vegas, my wife and I. And you see one sliver of it, and then you're like, this thing it doesn't end. This freaking site does not end. And okay, my last thing that I really enjoyed was I was down in San Diego. There's this place called Tijuana. It's
This place called Tijuana.
It's
There we
not
go.
quite in America. It's about 30 minutes in an Uber from downtown San Diego.
Incredible.
No,
I didn't realize it's that close. 30 minutes.
Oh,
Wow.
it's incredibly
But that
close. Like,
whole region, you're right though. Like, I mean, again, it's a kind of obvious answer, but that West Coast part, like even going down from LA to San Diego, like that whole, there's so many nice places on the way.
Mental good,
Even where
man.
my missus, her family's from, Orange County, like there's lots of beautiful, like
Orange
Laguna-
County's
I know you
sick.
love, yeah, Laguna
I
Beach,
love that
Newport
shit.
Beach, they're all beautiful. Yeah, every time I'm there, I send Jack a picture of the same places like that he loves.
I
But
love
it's just,
that shit.
it's just, I think a lot of good memories there as well, because it's like, you know, coming to America, like even when I was a kid, the first time I came was 96. And I came for the 6-week summer holidays. Like in the UK, we
Oh,
get 6 weeks.
you used
With-
to do 6 weeks
no,
in
but
this.
that was like with my mum and my sister, and we had
That's
family.
still
We
a
did
long
like the
time.
Pakistani way, like
Oh.
with my auntie in New Jersey in Queens, my
Yeah.
uncle in Queens, and then I had an uncle in Sacramento.
So not
like,
Yellowstone is what you're saying.
No. We weren't balling out. We did go. I mean, it was an incredible trip. We went to Disneyland. Like we did
That's
some
sick.
in Anaheim or Disney World or whichever one it is. We went up to Niagara Falls. That was actually really incredible as well. But yeah, it was a fun trip back then. But it was like really planted the seed for like that American kind of like what you've seen on TV, but seeing it in person was kind of crazy. And I remember coming out of LAX and seeing like the palm trees. And just as being someone from Europe, like just seeing a palm tree in a city is like, what's going on here? And then I remember
Hey,
when
California is next level geographically.
yeah,
It just hits
It's
it's so
everything,
beautiful.
man.
Yeah, I
insane.
don't know if I'd ever want to live there, but I do love visiting it. It's just really beautiful
Monopoly
to visit.
on
Vibes.
geography right there.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And then the other one, I'll just add one that I actually haven't been to again, but I really have wanted to go. So maybe we'll do an NIA catch up there. But New Orleans is somewhere that I really.
I've been.
Yeah, is it
Good.
fun?
A good time, man.
my, bro, that's a great call. Wait,
Could
bro,
you get like the French, like the what's it called,
wait,
the
is
French
Bilal
chorus or
doing
whatever?
this episode places I haven't been? Like, Bilal, what's your favorite place? I haven't been.
Yeah,
but,
I'm trying
so-
to say like places I know I'm sure I'd love, but like because otherwise it's like New York. Yeah, New York's great, but like it's kind of boring.
Dude,
Everyone knows
New
it already.
Orleans slaps
New Orleans.
so hard, dude. First of all, so I
Also,
arrive
that
at
video,
airport.
there's a viral video of these gangsters in New Orleans. Do you remember this, Jack? Is this New Orleans, the one I'm talking about?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
What do they say in the video? There's a
It's
Jeremy or
Ross
something?
Kemp on gangs. Yeah.
Trung, have we ever seen this video? It's incredible.
No,
But
can you
anyway,
guys send
sorry.
it?
Back to you. Have you been to New Orleans, Trung?
Yeah, it's incredible, man. I'll give a couple tidbits what I love about the city. It's everything you mentioned, right? It's so like Montreal and New Orleans, obviously the French influence are so different from the rest of North America.
Yeah.
And there's actually quite a sizable, relatively speaking, Vietnamese population there.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
In the lead up to like a full deployment in the Vietnam War with Ho Chi Minh really taking over the north and then moving it towards a straight conflict with the United States and the South, the southern South Vietnam was run by a Catholic, and the Catholic Church is very strong in New Orleans. So they took in a lot of Vietnamese dissidents and political refugees. So that's interesting. That's how they got there, Catholic Church connection. But the interesting thing about New Orleans, and I had no idea, we obviously know Mardi Gras, that crazy stuff that goes down in that area. But when I got to the airport, every ad was for the World War II Museum. I'm like, what? Why is there a World War II museum in New Orleans? And like, why is it apparently the biggest one, or one of the biggest ones in America? It's because they built the landing crafts for D-Day in the city and in Louisiana. So there you go.
That's
Oh,
cool.
wow.
Yeah, go to the World War II Museum, people.
I'll definitely save that for when I go. Yeah, that's a. And then I would say I think upstate New York is actually quite underrated
Very
for
sick.
people that aren't in New York, because we go there quite often now. We've been going the last few years, but I lived there for like 7 years before I went, which is embarrassing.
Is it because there's
but-
lots of greenery, lots of trees?
Yeah,
and
it's like beautiful. Like I think Jack, you were there recently, right? I think you said, we
Yeah,
like to talk
man.
about this,
Pound
or-
Ridge. Very nice.
Yeah. You said you had a great time up there, and
Yeah.
it's just such a beautiful, like, landscape, and just it's like the woodsy areas of upstate New York.
The
And
Hudson
which is-
Valley, all
Hudson
the Hudson
Valley.
River. Yeah. We went
Woodstock's
to
pretty fun.
Lake Placid. If you haven't been, the old
yeah.
Winter
Olympics?
Olympics was held up there. But you can go and
Canadian
do
Trung
like,
got happy there.
There
You
you
see
go,
his
look at
face?
that.
He was like,
those
"I'm like,
eyebrows are
Olympic.
way up.
Olympics.
Yeah, it's a good.
But,
like,
yeah.
there's they got all the luge stuff and everything. You go and like see all the old Olympic infrastructure. Pretty cool.
It's pretty. It's
I'll
crazy.
say-
The US. Sorry, Trung. Just last thing on that. The US
go
has
ahead.
so many crazy geographies. Like you literally have the Grand Canyon to
It's
Alaska
unbelievable.
to New York East Coast all the
To
way
Las
Miami,
Vegas on the beach.
Florida. Yeah. Literally, it's just a crazy place in a great way. But what were you gonna say, Trung? Go
No,
for
I
it.
was just saying, like, very similar to how you mentioned upstate New York was, actually, isn't this basically the same area? Like, southern Massachusetts is basically upstate New York, right? It's like,
I think
I
they
don't
may
know,
be
the
near
state,
each other,
it's
but
similar,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's like
they're
away
not
from
far
big
away.
cities. So the Berkshires in Massachusetts. So I drove through the Berkshires, which is about 3 hours from 3 hours from Boston, and I stopped off at the NBA Hall of Fame on the way there. So that was amazing. That was a good trip. yeah, that's it, man. Like, yeah, perfect. Jack's got a balance, but that's perfect. I love it. We threw some American stuff in there. Guys,
Great.
happy 4th of July. Thank you,
4th of July.
listeners.
Yeah, thanks everyone for
Indeed.
listening. Let's put it out. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. We'll see you guys next week. Good to have everyone back in one place. All right.
Nice
Great
one,
bands,
boys. See you in a
guys.
bit.
Bye-bye.
Bye.